We've got more previews of who might end up in Donald Trump's inner circle in the White House, according to sources apparently close to Donald Trump himself in his campaign. And take a look at these. Secretary of State, we're looking at a possible Ambassador John Bolton.
Oh.
Have you heard of him before? Senator Bob Corker or Newt Gingrich, amateur ornithologist and all-around disgusting human being.
Okay, let's just pause there for 1 second. Okay.
John
Because
Bolton.
for those of you not in the weeds of politics, I got to tell you like the different players there. So we heard initially that it was going to be Newt Gingrich, and we were frightened by that, shocked and outraged by that, but not shocked really. I mean, of course, that was his supporter. Then Bob Corker on the list is among your basket of deplorables. Like, please let it be Bob Corker, okay? So because he is a normal standard corporatist Republican, he'll do what the financial industry wants. So if the financial industry wants war, and from time to time it does, they'll get one. So that's your best case scenario. But sometimes the financial industry doesn't want war, so Corker will stop it.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, not bad. I mean, is this in a Trump presidency as good as you're going to get, right? John Bolton is one of the most crazed neoconservatives in the country, if not the top crazed neoconservative. If he picks John Bolton, that means the powers that be, including the people who funded him, have voted for war.
Yeah.
So
the entire Bush complex, they're back.
yeah, but only the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Any reasonable people, Armitage, Powell, of course, all those guys are gone.
Yeah, Powell spoke out against Trump.
Yeah.
So
He might die.
You're saying that Trump's going to surround himself with the most reprehensible, repulsive people to the general public. I bet it's a successful organization.
Okay,
And
but
by the way, I just hope to God, if it is John Bolton, as he's coming into D.C., someone to remind him that this is the department that it's not supposed to blow stuff up. Like, that's defense. You're the state.
John Bolton.
The idea that this is the guy who'd be in charge of diplomacy,
So John Bolton.
that's a big FU at all of America. It's a joke. It's a meme.
No, but by the way, if you want war, you don't put John Bolton as Secretary of Defense. You put him as Secretary of State,
Totally.
so that there are no brakes in the car.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he might just be sending Newt to scout the world for a hot wife. You know what I mean? It might be, listen, Newt, I need you just scout, just in case I need a new one. You're Secretary of State. You can go to all those countries. I don't have time to shop around anymore.
And to be and Newt would know because they both have had 3 wives.
That's right.
So
It's
they're
time to trade
experienced.
them in.
That's true.
Wasn't John, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't John Bolton originally nominated to be UN ambassador, then they blocked his
Right,
appointment,
they had
and
to
then
do
Bush
it
did it in a recess?
During recess,
And and by that time, regular people knew enough of what a douche he was that I read a New York Times story about him walking down the street in New York and people were booing him. John Bolton, the UN ambassador.
Maybe they just didn't like mustaches.
So my point, I guess my larger point is that Trump is going to be the most unpopular president going in. He's surrounding himself with the most unpopular people from the last administrations. I really don't see him getting anything done. And if he,
but those aren't mutually exclusive.
So let's
I
put it
totally
this
agree.
way.
He'll be unpopular, but he'll be unpopular.
But he has all the
because
levers
of
of
the
power.
terrible
Right.
things
He doesn't care about being popular.
Right, but let's long game this. So if he is, so in 2 years, I mean, they couldn't be more hated. There will be, if we play this right, a progressive wave that takes over the Congress in 2 years. These
being
people
hopeful.
are.
The
Yes,
Senate is
but
really bad for
Jay,
Democrats.
Really
in 2
hopeful.
Fucking
years.
Donald Trump became president. What I'm saying is not crazy. Because
Well,
people go,
but-
there's 24 seats for Democrats. This is no longer normal. What do you think the public is going to react to these fucking people who are detestable easily
hope that
and
they'll be very
repulsive?
against it.
And by the way, he got less votes than Mitt Romney. Don't worry about this. This is not it. When I say don't worry, I mean it's going to be way worse for them than anybody imagines. I mean, this is going to wake up the left. Barack Obama, the neoliberals put the left to sleep.
Jimmy,
and now the left is awake. I know there's going to be ugly shit, but there's ugly shit happening right now. And we can thank Barack Obama for handing off the surveillance state to a maniac like Trump, Christie, and Giuliani.
Okay, we got to go to the rest of the cabinet. I just got to say, look, yes, maybe the Democrats win some seats in 2018. By the way, if they stop being so corporatist, which is what lost in this election, that's a big if, right? But in the meanwhile, if John Bolton, Secretary of State, we're going to war. And if we're going to war, it might be with Iran, which would make the Iraq war look like child's play. So
But at least,
how many lives are we going to lose?
We have a president who feels a grave sense of responsibility when it comes to the deployment of nuclear weapons.
Well, one thing I just want to say, Jimmy, and this is why I love what you're saying, but I don't believe they take pride in being hated. They love picking the most hated person because that feeds into their we're being picked on and all of that. They love being hated. You know, this is like what I was saying about Barack Obama. You got 2 months left, piss everybody off. Trump will go in, look, they hate me anyway. I'll really piss them off, you know. So,
But by the way, I agree with everything you said about the popularity and long-term what effect it might have. It's just I also am thinking right now, especially we're the first week, I'm thinking more about the things that will cause that to happen, which could be devastating. I still remember the Bush years. So.
Yeah, I know. It was a lot of horrible stuff.
But I don't disagree with you in the popularity and all that.
Okay.
Now, Treasury Secretary, we'd already heard about Jamie Dimon, and there was I don't remember his name, but there was a Goldman Sachs former executive. We also have businessman Carl Icahn.
There you go. Carl Icahn.
Finally.
You've been waiting for him
well,
this whole time.
he has never done anything wrong, so why not? It's a good man.
Now, we should lump in with what we were talking about, Secretary of Defense. We have Mike Flynn, Stephen Hadley, Jeff Sessions, the smartest man in Washington, D.C., according to Donald Trump, and former Senator Jim Talent.
So there, the guy who you should be worried about is not retired General Mike Flynn, who's a pretty bad character, was one of the top Trump surrogates, but it's Stephen Hadley. Stephen Hadley is another neoconservative who would jump at the opportunity to start a war.
Yeah.
So remember, these are the guys who had the plan to start wars in 7 different Middle Eastern countries, the Project for a New American Century. And we're almost at the whole 7. Now if Hadley and Bolton are back in, oh boy, we're gonna run the gamut here.
Now, these next ones are even more shocking. I really wish that they weren't all in one graphic because I'm worried about possible heart attacks. So bring up this next graphic. Secretary of Homeland Security, Governor Chris Christie, there go all your bridges, or Sheriff David Clark.
From
He's
Milwaukee.
a joke, possibly a murderer. You remember that story a couple weeks back? The guy who was left to die of thirst for 7 days, I believe it was. He could be your Secretary of Homeland Security. Secretary of Commerce, Governor Mike Huckabee. I don't even understand what the link there is. What the fuck does Mike Huckabee know about commerce?
Well, didn't he have one of those church channels that raised money on cable?
That's true.
That's commerce,
That's
right?
something.
Yeah. He had a church
commerce.
channel. That's
I think
commerce.
he had miracle shakes.
Yeah,
he had
something
miracle
like that.
shakes.
Miracle
That's
shakes,
commerce.
seeds.
Now, that sheriff, that's the black guy who hates black people, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll be on the no-fly list so fast, I wouldn't even know what happened. Don't worry, we'll take care of him.
Yeah. They
We'll
might
take care of
they
him.
might put you on a no-fly list mid-flight.
Yeah, really.
To add you to it.
No, they're like, Alonzo, we want you to come on the flight.
Yeah,
come on
yeah,
the flight.
come on the
Come on the flight.
flight.
Come
Oh,
and see.
man.
Yeah. But I think we're underplaying that last one. I don't know if you saw that. Secretary of Education Ben Carson, a man who believes that the best tutor is an archangel and who believes in creationism. His historical knowledge includes thinking that pyramids were grain silos.
By the way, from the biblical character Joseph, he built it. Yeah. Now, there are no archaeological records to indicate that there was any Joseph there.
No, but that you could literally have creationism in public schools as a result of Ben Carson being in charge of that.
Okay,
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Prior to Ben Carson, I thought brain surgery was hard to do. After listening to Ben Carson, I was going to go to DeVry. I figured it takes 6 months. I could be a brain surgeon. How hard could it be? Ben mastered it.
My dog had a thing twitching. It was neurological. I was emboldened by Ben Carson. So I did a little, and he's
You got
all
it?
right.
Yeah.
I left a sponge in there, but I'll
Listen.
go back and get it.
The Earth is only 6,000 years old. How much is there to learn?
That's right.
You know, there's not that much.
I like the idea of Jimmy gifted hands door.
So can I just say one last thing about Ben Carson? As you know, he's a joke and he believes this insane things. And by the way, he's a Seventh-day Adventist and believes that the U.S. and the Catholic and the Pope are the two things that will bring up Armageddon. He's just a super kooky guy. But put all that aside, he's spoken out against free college education. So on the things that matter the most, the things that he can affect. So he's going to go in the exact opposite direction as Bernie Sanders and say, no, your kids get no opportunity because we already made it. We already have the money. Why would we keep that ladder up? No, we're going to knock that ladder off the first thing we do, no free college education. So that's what you have to look forward to in Trump land, where those who already have the money and power will retain it at your expense.
Well, even more dangerous than that is defunding public schools with vouchers. Forget about college. You're going to have kids who go to an elementary school with no books because their parents didn't have enough money that the voucher could get them into private school. I mean, that to me, that's the scariest thing about what they're going to do to education. When you take away, public school system is bad enough. Now you're going to take all of that money out and put it into vouchers. Forget about, you won't have to worry about paying for college because they literally won't be able to get in.
Yeah. We also had, by the way, Interior Secretary, former Governor Sarah Palin, based purely on her ability to pick off a wolf at 300 yards from a helicopter.
So I like how we're underplaying. No, Sarah Palin is very likely to be a cabinet secretary.
She could be Secretary of Energy.
You know what's great about that? I don't even know what the Secretary of Interior does, and I don't want her to do it.
Now, there's two other things. We're talking about some of the consequential picks. Before we go to the head of the CIA potentially, I want to return briefly to possible Secretary of State Newt Gingrich. Because you might think, well, okay, he's a terrible guy, but he's also one of those 90s Republicans that seemed so scary before until we started to see the next three waves of Republicans. But we want to play a tape from earlier on in the campaign about some things that Gingrich might want to accomplish if he gets power in D.C. So let's play video one.
San Bernardino, Fort Hood, and Orlando involve American citizens. We're going to ultimately declare war on Islamic supremacists, and we're going to say, if you pledge allegiance to ISIS, you are a traitor and you have lost your citizenship. And we're going to take much tougher positions. In the late 1930s, President Franklin Roosevelt was faced with Nazi penetration in the United States. We originally created the House Un-American Activities Committee to go after Nazis. We passed several laws in 1938 and 1939 to go after Nazis, and we made it illegal to help the Nazis. We're going to presently have to go take the similar steps here.
That is awesome, because he might say, we're going to track down ISIS sympathizers, and then us libs would say, holy shit, this reminds us of the House Un-American Activities Committee, one of the darkest, like America has rarely descended, although in this time it was more common, to the darkest depths of other countries that we've criticized so much, rightfully so. And that was one of the times when we began to suspect that every American could be an ally of our hated enemy, that people were put on blacklists, they lost their jobs, they lost their careers, they were run out of D.C. We would make that comparison. He just made that comparison favorably. That's his template going forward.
Yeah, so this is on day one. They haven't even taken power yet, right? And now look, again, that was in the middle of the campaign that he said that. But he announced it, they won, and now he's on the list for Secretary of State. And so these are the ideas that are going to get circulated. And by the way, for those of you out there who think like, well, I mean, if the guy's with ISIS, yeah, maybe he should lose his citizenship. No, that's not the point of that, guys. The point is they get to decide who is with ISIS or is helping them in some way.
Or
in
sympathizes with them. That's literally a thought crime.
Or hurting our ability to fight back against ISIS. And if you criticize President Trump, who's fighting ISIS, well, you're hurting our ability to get ISIS. And all of a sudden, you lost your citizenship, and then we can do anything we want to.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not afraid of a Department of Un-American Activities or whatever they call it, if you're not afraid of that, then you deserve to have one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that doesn't scare you, then we should have one where they could just arbitrarily decide, that's un-American.
Yeah.
And Cenk, I will not be sitting next to you. I got enough trouble with the black sheriff. I don't need to be hanging out.
I know what you're thinking about the mainstream media.
Had enough. It's going to stop.
You know who's going to stop it? You are. You create the Young Turks, independent media. You power us. TYTnetwork.com/join. Be the revolution.